This video will focus on the topic of how to create a positive behavior program within an early childhood environment. First, let's talk about what positive discipline is and why it is so important. Positive discipline is a range of methods that are used to create a healthy and respectful environment. This can be done through character education, both social and emotional learning, and the use of effective positive discipline methods within the classroom. Positive behavior programs also use tools that help create an environment of mutual respect where the skills of communication, problem solving, respect, and self regulatory skills are taught to the children. Working with a positive behavior program is important as it helps young children develop a strong identity formation. By using such a method, children are encouraged to build self-esteem and self-concepts, which have a large impact on the rest of their lives. Next, I will be discussing why punishment does not have a place in a positive discipline program. The manner in which we choose to discipline children has a great effect upon them. Methods such as scolding, punishment, and anger are not appropriate to use when working with young children. Such methods will actually damage and break down a child's developing self-concept and self-esteem. As teachers, we need to support the development of such abilities and should not be breaking them down. For this reason, punishment has no place in a positive discipline program. As an alternative to punishment, teachers should aim to use positive discipline methods so that they are able to guide and control children's behavior rather than punish them for their misbehaviors. Such methods will be discussed further on. I will now talk about defining acceptable behaviors. It is important to understand some behaviors are communications of a child's unfulfilled need. When we understand why a child is misbehaving or what need has not been fulfilled, it makes it much easier to guide the child's direction and to help them to correct their own behavior. It is also important to clearly and firmly state and set boundaries and limits. This is so that children can better understand what is expected of them and their behavior. It is also important for teachers to remember that we have to model the types of behavior we wish to teach young children. This is often a great way to teach acceptable behavior. Finally, the last point I will focus on is alternative and positive approaches to discipline. I cannot stress this point enough, but modeling is one of the most powerful ways to teach children about socially appropriate behavior. It is so important when working with young children to use modeling. They are extremely observant and learn so much through watching people around them. So even when we think that children are not watching us or our behavior and actions, they usually are. So a huge amount of what they learn, especially when it comes to social development, is learned through observing and modeling the behavior they see, usually of the adults that are around them, or maybe children that are slightly older as well. For this reason, one always needs to be mindful of their own actions and behaviors within the classroom environment. The next approach one could use is ignoring behavior you want the child to change. Children will only continue a pattern of behavior, and specifically negative behavior, if it gets a response out of someone or if they are given some form of attention from behaving in that negative way. If no response is given, the child will quickly understand that there is no point in continuing to behave in a negative manner. The next method is to pay attention to positive and socially accepted behaviors. When we acknowledge when children behave in a acceptable or positive manner, it shows children that they are being acknowledged and that they are being acknowledged for desirable behavior. When this happens, they will feel less of a need to misbehave within the classroom. One can also restructure a situation. For example, if children are fighting over green blocks and red blocks, you can just remove one color of those blocks. So remove the red blocks and only leave the children with green blocks to play with. Then there's no need for them to argue over the blocks. By removing one of the colors, the situation dissipates and there is no need for any forms of misbehavior. Finally, we can redirect energy when it's appropriate to do so. When this is done, we also need to give children alternatives. So, by redirecting children's misbehaved energy, we need to restrict them by saying you cannot behave in this manner, but then we also need to re-engage them in a different form of behavior, in a more positive form of behavior. So we need to restrict a child by telling them they cannot engage in bad behavior, but we also need to provide them with other options of what they could do instead of engaging in that negative behavior pattern. So these are the tips that I have thought of and have read up about in terms of how to create a positive behavior program that can be used within an early childhood environment. I hope that you have found this video informative and helpful. Thank you very much for watching.